Live. Hey, Summer.
Hi, Andre.
Hey. This is our weekly cast at Get Resourced. You can follow us on YouTube at Get Resourced, also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, where we chat various topics around reconnecting, resourcing ourselves, source, and others. And what does that mean? So, unpacking real conversations, ways of relating, reconnecting to our inner power, taking that power back. We always love to open up with the prompt of what's alive in you. So, what's alive in you today, Summer?
Yeah, what's alive in me is explaining that comment. What's alive in us is all about our inner experience, what we're feeling, the body sensations that we're having. Um, and what's alive in me is the exercise I did this morning, the shoveling I did. I feel very alive and invigorated from doing that. And just really happy and grateful to share these conversations with you. We used to have them around dinner and we thought, wow, these would be great to share. And they are. And I get to know you even more just by doing these, which is really fun and exciting, as well as all the guests that join us. So that's what's alive in me. What's alive in you today, now, in this moment?
Yeah, now in this moment, there's a level of excitement and giddiness. Um, it's residing in my chest. A lot of energy is in my chest. Underneath that is a feeling of yeah. I was kind of in and out today. Went to the sphere state, the scarcity state. Um, it's not as active right now. Just because I'm switching my focus to things that fulfill me, and so it's so easy how the slippery slope can happen with certain thoughts can create a repeated sense of inner experience, right? If I have certain thoughts that could lead me down to a negative spiral. So yeah, so below that, excitement is just fulfillment. Yeah, fulfillment.
Mm,
Mhm. Being fulfilled right now.
exciting. That kind of leads us into what we thought we would talk about today, brain worship and our inner experience. And I think that has a lot to do with fulfillment. And people seek that, don't they? Um,
Mm. Search for happiness, right? The search for meaning and purpose. Um,
yeah.
yeah, the escape from the mundane. Um, to work for the weekend, to live for the weekend, to take vacations, which means to vacate my life.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it also reminds me of I have a lot of different clients that often really want to travel. And I get traveling to new locations, but I think people underestimate the amount of amazing adventure and travel that can happen when we explore our inner experience. It reminds me of all the good movies out there, all the adventure movies, the thrill movies. We go to movies to watch other people's lives, and we're excited when there's danger and there's reprieve and there's snake pits. And in our own lives, we don't like a lot of challenge, it seems. We go to the gym to lift weights, but when it comes to the emotional, spiritual stuff, I wouldn't say everybody. A lot of people do inner work or they're doing personal development, but it's very often, like you said, brain worshipped or brain heavy. Um, and I know you have a background in personal development and other things, and curious about your thoughts and what that how that plays into fulfillment and all that good stuff.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I want to liken it to the education I received was really head focused. It was about memorization, regurgitation, just rehashing what's through here, and also being a software developer for 12 years. I lived in my head for a long time. Also being or not having the skill set to express my feelings because hey, I shouldn't feel or what my inner experience is. I lived up here and to the point where I really numbed and checked out. when there was anything that was uncomfortable. And so it leads into like reading books and going to seminars and taking things in. There's a lot of mind processing, right? There's a lot of information. And with information, naturally, it goes to my head. And I think I'm making progress, right? I think I'm getting it. Though I've been at this for some time already, that just that's not the full picture, right? To have the understanding, call it understanding now, is having that intellect so that my ego, my rational mind can come on board because it likes to question things, likes to question things. Though, what I found in terms of fulfillment is that um, I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like I was pushing harder and harder,
Ah.
using my mind to push through things. And yes, it can work 100%. I find coaching to be very focused on the mindset, mental reframing, where my attention goes, energy flows. So a lot of it is mental processing and not much somatic experiencing, not much in terms of the unconscious or symbols and metaphors and stories and energy. There's more focus on the mental. And that's just how the industry is at. If I read a book or a seminar, right away in my head, I'm taking information. So it gives me this false sense of security, a false sense of progress, because I know it, but am I applying it? Am I
Mm,
living it? Am I embodying it?
mm,
Over time, what I see is like a discouragement. There's a disappointment where people are just burnt out from personal development. They've tried it before, but it doesn't work. Why is that? Right. So it's just so much more than just the mind. I know I can get far by just like focusing on that, but there's much more deeper. Like I'm missing the body, right? I'm just looking at my head, and I'm missing like three quarters of my body here.
mm. Yeah, actually, you know what's coming to mind, and I've never actually thought about this before. This is why I love our talks, is there's a lot of head-based, goal-orientated body stuff, like people who want to lose weight, people who want to build their bodies. And I know you did bodybuilding. We both work out. But a lot of people, like in the past, at least, Weight Watchers and things, were very very outside focused versus really about checking in with their inner experience. How do I feel in my body? Does this energize me? Does this make it feel good? Or am I just trying to look like somebody else and fit myself into a mold with this competition and this drive and this force that often can lead us into adrenal fatigue or burnout or to various eating disorders? And so I personally see this outside focus. When we talk about goals, for example, I know there's with coaching, how much money do you want to make a month? How many hours do you want to get in? Like it is very m- numbers focused. And I wonder if you could speak to both the prawns and the prawns. That's pros and cons mixed together.
Yeah.
The shrimp, no. The pros and cons of, the numbers, the very focused, like you said, driven. People can drive themselves. And then maybe what other kinds of goals might actually look like that are more fulfilling.
I say hi to Tracy. Welcome.
Hi, Tracy. You by yourself
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, that's such a powerful question because I can see myself going in many different ways. And speaking to personal development, it's very masculine energy focus, like take action, set goals, and there's a place for that 100%. I'm not talking about sitting around manifesting, feeling good and hoping things happen when I'm not taking action, right? So it just goes back to balance. And I find um, modern day personal development self-help is out of balance, and it's people are recognizing that and bringing more of the feminine somatic energetic experience into it, combining it. What I like to say is like coaching, traditional coaching focuses on the future, right? Focuses on taking action, more very masculine. We could also say therapy, traditional therapy or psychology, focuses on the inner experience in a way of like the emotions, the feelings, the past, the traumas. And it's not one or the other. It's both and the present. So transformation happens across three time zones, not just looking at the past and healing all that or focusing on the future and growing. It's both past to get the lessons, the future, set what goals, what vision I have as my North Star, and then taking action in the present. So coming to this question of numbers, it has a place. It's just a balance because numbers provide confirmation that we are on track, right? But then I can be tunnel vision and so focus on the numbers and performance that I lose the essence of why I'm doing it in the first place. This I'm talking about myself. I make it about the transaction, not about the relationship. I get hyper focused on the money, right? And so greed comes in, right? I start becoming mechanical. I've been a software developer. I can work with numbers. Um, what I found for myself was I became so rigid and so what I say, sticklerlish on the numbers themselves. So it's hyper focus, right? And I lose the essence of like the relational side of things. So it's a balance, right? So where I'm coming with this is how can we balance all sides of that? Some people are great with numbers and tracking, setting goals, great. But other people are great with building relationships and talking. And I think at the end of the day, I have emotions for a reason. A classmate of ours yesterday mentioned we are not robots, right? We're human. And with that comes the emotions, comes with the inner experience. So how do I bring all of that into it? So what about not just like money goals? Those are great. What about like mental and emotional goals, relational goals, spiritual goals? We talk about the wheel of life. It's a great exercise to see how balanced I am on the wheel, right? And it just in society we tend to focus on the money first because that's kind of immediate, right? Yeah. And the money kind of becomes the central focal point. So yeah, what I say is like more of the expansion of there's much more behind that. Like money is a tool, right? Money fulfills a need. And so I like to bounce it back to you of like, where do you think numbers come in, money comes in, the setting goals come in and taking action? Yeah.
Mhm.
Where does that fit?
Well, I might end up giving a very unpopular and very stranger woo woo. I'll preface that first. But even before I say that, I'll say that my first degree is actually in business, oddly enough. And I wanted to speak to what you said about healing or goals in the three time zones, the past, present, and future, and reference Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and why the present actually accesses the past and the present, and how we can heal all time zones and travel back in time is because the truth lives in the body. If we experience some kind of trauma, what I prefer to call an energetic stamp, an energetic impression where our nervous system was dysregulated, our body remembers it. And because this whole talk is about relationships, when we come to the present moment in relationship, it's relationships then allow us, we call it triggers, but to mirror those things that have been locked in our nervous system that are coming up then to be healed. So in essence, if going back to our inner experience, if we can accept honor being the big one, really observe and allow that movement to take place within us, because emotion is meant to be in motion, um, and we experience some kind of revelation, some kind of insight, which does happen. You mentioned somatics. There's a lot of somatic therapy, which means in the soma, in the body. I do believe there mm, is a little bit more to that when we practice something like Inside Out, when there becomes more of an also related spiritual focus, that it's not here, it's also part of the energetic realm or the universal realm. Having said that, in the present moment, as we allow energy to move, we come to insight, which allows us to heal. if that energy has moved, it's like it never happened. So therefore, we're not focused on the story anymore. We don't have any energetic charge anymore because it's been energetically released. It has no hold on us anymore. And that's true for a lot of things. Even I had a lovely family friend that babysat me when I was 3 years old. And um, I'm not sure what YouTube and those things allow me to say. Anyways, wasn't a pleasant experience. I wasn't old enough to verbalize it. Um, he had eventually went to jail for the things that he did to other young women. Um, and I used to be terrified of bathtubs because that's where these experiences happened. And I didn't remember why. Why didn't I like being in a bathtub? But as my dreams and my body let me know energetically what I experienced, even though I didn't have the verbal capacity to explain it, I came to some acceptance and some understanding, and was able then to talk to people in my life about this, and learned a lot about this person, our family friend, and came to realize that what I experienced in my body was true. And as I came to that acceptance, and really honored my inner experience, the bath, as you know, is my inner place of reprieve. I no longer have this phobia, or this, like, there's no way I'm getting in a bathtub. It's totally altered my perception, and changed how I experience that. So, um, I really believe that as we come into our own and heal in the present, we're much able to identify goals that resonate with us as true, rather than those resistance pieces and those fear pieces that block us from getting any goal that we set, whether that's with our mind. If we set money goals, often people don't succeed because they have this distorted view of their self worth that gets in the way. So it's all good to make goals, but people don't achieve them because there's a, a, a block in there that they can only really access through the energy that is actually fairly easily accessed when they just acknowledge what they're struggling.
Yeah, and that's powerful because that's the essence of transformation is working with like the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual layers, all of it. And a lot of personal development focuses so much on the mind that it does talk about like your unconscious mind. It does talk about, let's say, the shadow work or the self-image. And I want to talk about self-image. Though I found that in my experience, it's a lot of mental processing.
Mm.
And so I'm reframing myself. I'm using affirmations repeatedly
Mhm.
over and over again. And of course, if I create proof and evidence, then my self worth gets elevated because I can fall back on it and be like, look at my bank account, look at the clients I got, or look at this, right? So that can help kind of fake it till you make it type of energy, though it can be quite exhausting because I'm pushing, I'm pushing to prove using just my intellect. And it's like as if I have this invisible bag of bricks that I'm carrying around. And we all hear like this notion of doing and then having and then being, right? That process of okay, I'll do it first and then I'll have what I want and then I can become that person. It's like I want to
Ah,
get that house, I want to get that car, I want to get that body, I want to make this much and I'll be happy, right?
mhm.
And we fall in that trap because the marketing is great, telling me that I'm not enough, that I should buy this, buy that. I'm being sold to all the time that my worth is low and I should compare myself to the next celebrity. So that is an engine in itself to get me disconnected from my power. And we also hear about being, do, have, which is the
Right.
inverse of becoming that person. And everybody gets it. They're like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Being, though it's so difficult to embody for me. Because the being is like, okay, how do I be this? I got to feel good. I could use affirmations, got to look in my mirror. And in a way, I'm forcing myself to feel good. So what happens is I avoid anything negative. I avoid shadow work. I avoid trauma because that makes me weak. I don't want to focus on it. I don't want to bring that back in. Let's say I go to a personal development seminar and it brings that shit back up. Like, I might be like, F you, personal development seminar, right? So it's like, I'm not willing to look at my past or the stuff, but that's where the gold is at. That's where the energetic timestamp you were talking about that helps me free that bag of bricks that I'm carrying around. So it's working with the mind, with the body, with the energetic blueprint of like, hey, what is beingness? So that is a call for me to drop into my inner experience, mhm, addressing that trauma, that imprint, that experience, healing from it, which changes the story. And I live that new story here in the moment of the present moment. Then I'm taking that brick out of my thing and it becomes more embodied, right?
Yeah, that was a very eloquent description, and I can really feel the weight of those bricks when you talk about it. I would say that experience probably is more fulfilling. It's also, I would imagine, more terrifying when people come up with, in our culture, what I would say is a cultural story of what trauma is and how we're victims a lot of the times. And that's not to say that people don't have different amounts of power one way or another in the culture. But we we always have choices, and we tend to perpetuate our choices based on um, different patterns, what we would call in your training in positive intelligence, saboteurs or survival mechanisms. And I mean, it was intensely valuable for me, even though I had nonviolent communication training and my working inside out, to go, oh, Shirzad Shamin's work in positive intelligence. Hmm. Oh, this is why I make the choices I make. And it was so much different than, human design is a great format, Myers-Briggs. There's so many different assessments, but to really understand the way that I think and why I think it was, first of all, hard to accept. My ego didn't like it very much. But also really revelatory in terms of how I came across to other people, and it helped to explain why I got the results that I was getting. And I had to, you know, face some of first of all, I had to accept that I did that, and then I had to face the emotions that were in my body as to why I did that. And then I had to feel them. And if anyone knows, or if you know yourself to be the anxious attachment person in a relationship, it kind of goes hand in hand with what's called the controller saboteur. And sometimes anxiety, when we're triggered, when one person's more avoidant, or they tend to leave or shut down or ghost the conversation, the one on the other side of that, the what we might call the controller, the people pleaser sometimes, or the anxious person, what that does for them is that it actually is an experience of death, of dying in its most extreme way. Um, when people have panic attacks, it is like reliving an experience. For me, my mother had a daughter before I was born that I've never met, and I didn't know I had a sister until I was 36 years old. And but some part in my body knew I shared a womb. When you're second in a room, there's always telltale signs in there. The smell of their perfume, energetically, just something. And so when I was born, and as this comes to be the case when a lot of mothers um, who've had children and given them away, often they put them in unwed nursing homes. There was so much shame that was carried with that, that those mothers just become numb and emotionally unavailable. So my experience was I came into the world and there was no one to reflect that there was no connection. Like my physical needs were met, but emotionally there was this absence. And it's kind of like coming into the world and there's nothing. It's like, well, how do I discover who I am if I didn't have anyone to mirror back to me my purpose? And this goes back to our feelings of fulfillment. We're all here to be in service to each other, to be part of a community that functions and that is effective at meeting our needs. And when we do that, there's so much joy. There's so much reciprocity and evolution that takes place. And so when we can start to look at why we function, the fulfillment starts to just amplify in these most magical ways.
Yeah. It's empowering because then I'm able to separate myself and start to change the script, right? Be the star of my own movie instead of being an extra or what we call an NPC, non-playable character, you know? And speaking about the saboteurs, like I really appreciate that assessment because it's different than any other personality test. Because what I
Mhm.
found with personality tests, it emphasized my strengths, who I am, my personality.
Right.
Though what happens for me is that I become attached to it and make it my identity and I become unbalanced. Okay. Because I'm so focused. Oh, I'm a an analyst or I'm a supporter or I'm a promoter. And I start becoming that, or like a horoscope, what it means to be a Libra, right? Or a Chinese horoscope. And I start attaching my identity to that. And it helps remove the wholeness of it. And so the saboteur assessment is kind of like the inverse. It shows me all the parts of me that are getting in my way. Okay. And that's why it's tough for people to look at. They don't want to look at it. They're like, hell no, that's not me. They rather look at a personality test because it shows me my strengths. Oh, I'm that. I'm good. And that's my ego just eating it all up and like attaching to identity. The saboteur assessment is empowering because now it shows me all these parts of me that are getting in my way of fulfillment and meaning and happiness. Because if I attach to a personality and I go 110%, then there are other areas of my life that are out of balance, aren't they? And no wonder I don't feel happy because there's a cost from for being out of balance. So the saboteur assessment shows me what's getting in my way, but they're also my superpowers, right? And so I get to begin to work with this. And in my personal development career, I realize the deeper I went with it, the more it's about wholeness within my inner experience, right? Recognizing what's happening right now for me in the present moment and then responding from that place consciously. Because if I don't do that, I'm run by my unconscious programs, which are my survival programs.
True. And you've said something, and there's a couple comments there that look interesting from Brooke and Chris. I'm interested, curious, Chris, what actually happened to you last night? Um, but Dre, what I've never heard before, and I didn't realize is most personality tests, like you said, are positive based. They tell you where your strengths are, and they mention, maybe where you're not strong. That hasn't occurred to me. Why I find that information of the saboteur assessment and positive intelligence so informative and so empowering. And the point is not to point out your flaws, like you said. The saboteurs are also your superpowers. It depends when you're using them and for what. Which brings us to the topic of stress and crisis and social stress scales and how under stress is when we tend to get the most triggered, when we tend to have our survival mechanisms take place, when we get into accidents or injuries, or we have illness, heart attacks, strokes, those types of things. So, how is it that we can lead lives that are both fulfilling and also keep us the healthiest? Like, I I truly believe it's about being in alignment with our life-serving energy, with source itself, and that's reflected back to us in all our relationships. And I don't know where I want to go from there, but that's what's
Yeah.
coming through me. The
Happiness
moment.
and fulfillment, I've discovered, is an inside job. That's it. It's not being
Yeah,
on the
that's pretty
train.
simple.
I can be happy now. I get to choose, right? What's going on through my head? What am I working towards? Are these my goals? Or these are my visions? Is this what society tells me to be? Right? It's not like about having things more and this is bigger and all that. That's great as an experience, though it actually goes back down to how I feel about myself. Do I love myself? Do I respect myself? What is my self worth? And it goes back to self image. I've done some exercises of writing on my self image to like raise my income goal because that's a big diff, right? Like if we're looking to make more money, we have a certain image of what we're worthy around. So it's important. And that intellectual exercise of writing it out is good to create clarity. But what I found was to really embody that self image, that new self image, I got to start looking in my inner experience of what's happening right now because I'm reacting. If I'm stressed, if my willpower is low towards the end of the day, then I'm running by my unconscious habits, my survival programs that got me to where I'm at. So how can I elevate that when I'm not aware of it and making those switches when they come? Like doing those pattern interrupts in the moment when it comes, especially in relationship, I have an opportunity to blow up and swear or name call, or do I recognize that, ask for space, regulate myself, and get clarity in what I need? Right? It's a choice in the moment, and so that requires me to be present and connecting with my inner experience. And what I find with like personal development and where the brain worship goes is anything uncomfortable, I check out, I numb, I shut down. I don't want to look at it. I'll just overpower it with my rational mind and I compartmentalize it and I don't deal with it until something triggers it. Until I come home and I'm freaking exhausted and I go to porn, I go to video games, I go for the bottle. It shits out sideways on my kids, onto you. Like if I don't work with it, then it's going to run me when I'm not conscious of it. That's the whole idea of me being in tune with what's going on underneath the hood. Am I taking myself to maintenance and checking what's going on here? What are my emotions telling me? What am I needing right now?
Mm.
And that is fulfillment because that leads me to sovereignty. That leads me to freedom.
Hmm.
Because once I get to know myself, I can make conscious choices.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so interesting. As you're talking about bank accounts, a friend of mine once talked about their emotional bank account. We really look at our money so focused in our culture. It's fascinating. It's a man-made means to an end. We will go to the gym. We focus on our body fitness, our physical fitness, our bank account fitness far more than we have any real grasp or understanding about relationships. Um, unless you're in some kind of church that teaches you about relationships before you get married, most people don't even, they don't have a communication class. We don't teach that in school. We just fly by the seat of our pants, and a lot of people are hiding, you know, their dirty laundry because they're ashamed of being human. And it's such a tragedy that we have this opportunity to learn from each other about what really makes us tick, and we instead focus on things that are almost entirely irrelevant to our actual inside experience, which makes us really good slaves, actually. um, we'll work 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours until we die or have, you know, burnout or adrenal fatigue.
Now, and slaves to each other, slaves to each other,
Mm.
because we're human. We're wired for connection. We, my mentor Dewey Freeman says, we're born in relationship, we're hurt in relationship, we heal in relationship. So we're always looking to attachment. Attachment is a natural human thing to do. And am I attached to a human being or am I attached to the bottle? Am I attached to my partner or am I attached to porn? I'm always looking for some sense of connection and relating. And so this fear of like, why do I don't look at this inner world and I so focus on going is like this idea of like other people will get what I'm talking about. You know what I need, you know how I feel, and you fill that for me. And I do the same for you. And it's like the culture of people pleasing back and forth, outsourcing my power, waiting for someone to change to make me happy. Hmm.
It's almost hilarious.
Yeah, it's just the culture, right? And it's like, dang, no wonder I don't feel fulfilled, right? I don't feel happy. I'm giving my power away,
Yeah.
all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like Brooke says he loves this. He loves the movie analogies. I don't
yeah.
have that of you.
The references I mentioned about being the star in your own movie and not being an extra.
Oh, is that from a movie?
No, it's a
Oh.
movie analogy.
Oh, oh. Okay. I thought,
Yeah.
yeah. Brooke actually said there was a movie called Okay, it's a movie analogy.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm. So, what do you say about like this consciousness that you're witnessing in terms of like people kind of moving from here to here, right? Like, why would
Mm,
why would someone wanna start looking what's underneath here?
mm. Well, because yeah, and that is how human where human consciousness is going. I don't know for any of the viewers out there, or even some of the people that are on the chat right now, if they've noticed that a lot of people in their very near vicinity are having a lot of different kinds of health, relationship, life crises right now. It's exponential. And I might have talked about this before. And if anyone wants my healing crisis video, it's free and helps explain a lot of things. But crisis in Chinese is made of two characters. One is danger. If we approach our life in fear, we perceive danger. And if we look at it a different way, it's the second word in Chinese is opportunity. And so when we live in the sense of faith, we walk forward into a sense of opportunity when we experience different things. And I think I'm going on a bit of a tirade here. What was your actual question, Andre?
Like, why would I wanna drop into my inner experience? What's
Ah,
what's the power behind that? Yeah. Mm.
the power of it is the only place we can find faith, and the way that we can actually achieve goals is knowing if they're in alignment with who we are.
Mm.
And if we're in alignment with who we are and we know what our yes is and what our no is, people do muscle testing all the time, right? You'll go to that's popular these days, or people tend to understand that if you go to a naturopath, they can test your muscles. Your muscles have memory as to what is good and bad for you. They can test allergies that way. Well, what if you were to test yourself from the inside out? If that information is accessible through your muscles, they're inside your body. There's way to access that information. And it's not just information of whether a supplement's good or bad for you, what's your allergy for. It's also about what you're drawn towards, what you're pulled towards, what you're called towards, and being able to trust that calling rather than pushing yourself to some outside goal. And why this is super hard is because it's about creating something new. It's about the dynamic, ever evolving culture that we have, especially these days. There's an exponential growth curve. And what we knew in the past isn't going to cut it. People need to start learning new strategies and new ways of being that really take the courage to jump into the opportunity that a crisis offers. And it really does require courage, which from the French, coeur means heart. And if anyone knows who David R. Hawkins is, he built the consciousness scale. And the difference between the lower frequencies of fear, guilt, shame, pride, even, is courage. The middle line there is what separates us from then being able to experience love and bliss and joy and willingness and all of these things that are far more life giving and therefore provide us with so much more fulfillment in our lives.
Well, inner resonance, alignment, soul truth, being guided by my inner compass. Mm. Rather than setting goals strictly from my mind, my mental intellect, or comparing myself with other people or what other people are setting goals of, I'm setting goals from my energetic blueprint, from my inner resonance. And then I use my mind, I leverage my mind to make it
Yes.
come into fruition in the physical plane.
Yes, the mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. That is the point of it. And for some reason, we've tried to manipulate it backwards, believing that this physical realm is first, but it's not. We create the physical realm. It comes from the energetic first. And I can't remember what episode we did, but we talked about DNA and the etymology of
Episode 11.
11. Oh, see, you're so good, so organized that way. Episode 11, we talked about DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Um, it's a blueprint that exists in your body, and it actually means that God, Rabbi, the Lord and Master, and the fire at the center of your soul is actually in your body. It's not outside of it. It is accessible here. It's just that we haven't been taught to trust the energetic language. We think of it as fluffy or flaky, our imagination, which we access our emotions and our feelings, our metaphors and our images from, is child's play. Well, Einstein, he was a well revered scientist, wasn't he? He says that imagination is way more important than knowledge because knowledge is only of that which we already know. You can't create something new by using old prescripted protocols, coaching techniques, healing techniques that have already come. You have to tap into consciousness as it's unfolding. So this is where I think a lot of people are coming to coaching or more mind techniques, psychology, and really, and healing, even energy healing, is they're realizing, oh, there's a limit to this. It kind of limits me. Um, and so it becomes about then, why is this limiting me? Oh, it's still a part of what I call the fight, fix, or force paradigm. Most people don't realize they're still operating under the same umbrella versus what I might call the magic and miracles paradigm based in mirrors and metaphors, which is an energetic language, or like they say, images speak 1,000 words, which is accessible through our dreams, but also through what Joseph Campbell or Carl Jung would have called archetypes, which are that every person, place, thing, the Native American culture, the spirit animals, they're archetypes. They're energetically alive with meaning, is what they're alive with.
Think of a king, we have a picture of what that king looks like. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
qualities. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what language you speak, right? Whether it's German or French or Spanish or some obscure language in South India, Malayalam, for example. Um, when someone sees a picture of the king, they know what that means. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. And so that goes back to, I think I might have brought this up before, what we would call a priori language, our first language, which is energetic language. And so, how do we go back to understanding what that is? It is about what some people call intuition or the sixth sense. It's interesting that they lump it all in one because our inner experience, smell, taste, sound, images, sensations, body sensations, all of these outside senses are directly also reflected inward, and they're far more reliable than that which we think exists outside of ourselves, although it is also a mirror. Um, yeah, how do you want to take and run with that?
That was amazing. Dropping dropping bombs. Well, not nuggets, golden nuggets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta watch my language here.
All right.
Wow. That's very cool. Yeah. And as I go on that journey myself from my head into my body, like it's just this feeling of fulfillment, gratitude, um, intention. It's awakeness for me. I know you helped guide me into my inner experience back on episode 7, the Sacred Mirror live practice, because I was triggered in the moment, and we with your support, we processed the trigger live on here, right? And with enough practice for myself, I'm able to drop in and really help locate where that energy was. And by bringing attention to it, speaking to it in whatever form that was that came to me, it really helped dissipate that charge. Like it's not like this mental reframing of like be positive. Ah, it's not a big deal. Let's switch over. Because that trigger dates back to something that happened in childhood, and it was a repeated pattern. So I have an opportunity to look at that memory and to like massage it, to put some holy water on it, to kind of heal the wound a bit more. So the next time it comes up, I'm not reframing in that moment again using my willpower,
Yeah, right. So
though
sorry.
my energetic imprint is less activated by that, right? So it's not a band-aid fix. It's going to the root of it and working with that root. And I find going back to brain worship, a lot of our remedies, fixes, it's the physical, it's what we can see, our five senses. And it's the immediate while not knowing what's the message behind that. It's like it's like we kill the messenger,
Oh,
right?
we do. We do. Mhm.
Instead of listening to the message
Mhm.
behind the
Mhm.
message. Yeah.
Yeah, which by the way, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, mRNA stands for messenger, the messenger RNA. That's
Listening to
big.
the messages coming through to the body.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Mhm. And speaking of episode 7, that's very serendipitous that Brooke and Chris and Tracy, because I think they all or most of them were here. I know Brooke for sure was. He was supporting you. Um, there was some interesting comments about that. Speaking of brain,
Mm.
got,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
no,
got
oh, yeah.
flash from that, right?
I did. Someone projected onto me that, I had a demon inside of me, and I needed to get that out. That is utmost concern. Like, this is very serious. Hey, it just goes back to like, if I don't understand what's happening, I'm fearful of it. I'm fearful of what I don't get.
Mhm. Yeah, and I had a client actually the other night. I supported her through a panic attack, and they had gone to this very gifted intuitive, and they were talking about psychic attacks. And she asked me what I thought of that, and I said, "Well, I think it really is very simple, and it only boils down to one thing, and that is again this crisis opportunity. You either see danger in anything, or you see opportunity." And so, psychic attacks, again, have you think that there's something outside of you that's coming to get you. But the irony of this, things only come to get you if you are afraid. And you can see that with animals, little puppies, dogs, anything. If you are energetically aligned, if you are open, and even David Hawken in his book, Healing and Recovery, met with a cobra snake. We are mutually defining any experience. And I don't know if any of you've noticed, I've noticed, and maybe it's just my experience, but that there are a lot more videos out there of all sorts of different kind of animals that seem to have a lot more compassion um, and empathy with humans. You see cows and bears and lions and people with snakes and all sorts of things, even roosters and birds that you would think, well, what kind of whatever do they have? But forming these bonds with human beings that I didn't see growing up. And so, is that a reflection of the animals, or is that a reflection of the development of human compassion and human empathy that the animals can feel? So, Fear has so much to do with our perception. And there was a saying, I think I put it on my Facebook page, a little mean. Both faith and fear require that we believe in something that we cannot see. Demons, psychic attacks, whatever you want to call it. But it is simply through choice that you choose faith over fear. And that becomes where our consciousness comes from. And it
Mm,
is very interesting to me that healers of all sorts and different things talk about demons, entities, psychic attacks. These are all very scary things. However, if you are in light, if you are centered, if you are balanced, or if you are aligned with your true nature, there's not a there's no fear, and therefore you don't attract those things. When we talk about the law of manifestation, well, why is it that that isn't working with that? Because the laws of energy, which Einstein so perfectly demonstrated, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. And what do we try to create it with? What do we try to destroy it with? Our judgments, our fear. If we're not in a fearful place, it just transforms. We don't even have to do anything. We just have to be in the essence of who we actually are, and it transforms. It's actually so much simpler than our minds have made it out to be. So
yeah.
much simpler, truly.
Wow. Yeah. Mind blown. Speaking of the brain, yeah. Um, I know we're coming to time here, and I want to make a comment of like, so how do I look at my inner experience, and what are some steps, some practical steps to be there? It's the Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of now. Like for me, I would say, and I'd love to hear from you, Summer too. Some practical steps is being present. Can I catch myself in the moment and just be like, oh, what's happening right now? Just those moments of pause, even a meditation practice, a breathwork practice, to drop myself into my body right in the moment. Another invitation is to witness others doing it. If you can check out episode 7, right? You might elicit some reactions within you, but hey,
I will accept if you think there
witnessing,
was a demon there.
yeah, witnessing someone dropping into the experience, I call it a direct felt experience, DFE. Um, it's as if I'm unlocking codes for myself. I'm downloading codes by witnessing other people, and we do this in our community spaces as well, right? To help guide people in their inner experience and people witnessing it. And it's so much exponential because it's more than just reading something from a book or listening to something. It's like I'm witnessing it. It's like what Chris says. I'm in the same soup of consciousness, and so when I'm in that space, I share that same resonance with everybody else, and it's sort of a shortcut because we
It
learn
is.
so much more from witnessing someone doing something, right? Or living that experience or hearing someone's story, real life story. It's like, wow, it's so juicy. It's like life, right? And it's like, I see myself in that. And so it just collapses time in this
Oh, I
realm
like
to
how you
download
said
that.
that. It does. It does. It
Yeah.
collapses time. Because time actually
Mhm.
doesn't exist. That's what they mean by that. It does
Yeah.
not exist in the pure essence of direct felt experience through
Right.
others. When you can experience it, collapses time.
Exactly. The mind, Rupert Spira says, the mind is a prism. It projects and it creates time out of that. It fractals the present moment. Though
Mhm.
right now, the moment is all that ever existed. The
It's
now. The
expansive.
now is all that has ever existed. Yeah.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah. Eh,
Yes.
what would you
Mm-mm-mm.
say? In terms of practical steps for people to start honoring their inner experience, maybe
Oh,
start exploring that.
Um, well, I almost, when you said meditation and stuff, I almost felt myself clenching. Um, because in my experience, a lot of people find meditation difficult because they have an idea of what it is they're supposed to be doing, following their breath, whatever, ignoring body symptoms or sensations, following a guided meditation, which is prescripted. Um, And so, I guess practical steps. Um, hmm. Start putting yourself in experiences where you feel uncomfortable. The magic doesn't happen unless you're uncomfortable, where people invite you to express yourself. Um, and i- if you want a free course and you're listening to this, I talk about healing crisis and what that looks like and what it looks like to trust our emotions and our inner experience. What Dre and I think Connor Beaton called your direct felt experience. I call it your inner resonant truth. That's the same thing as when they do muscle testing, but you don't, from the inside, you get both a yes or a no, but also all the other information about what to do and what to take action based on your own insight. Um, so, you know, if you want to read my book, I can give that to you too about my process. It's not really mine. I just downloaded it. It's an ancient Egyptian alchemical wisdom. It's called Inside Out because that's how it should work from the inside
Living
out.
from the inside out.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Mm,
right. From the soul side,
beautiful.
not the other way around. So,
Mm, cool.
listen to, well, you know what? The most practical thing is listen to those things that resonate with you and trust it. Oh, this feels so good. Go to those things that you're interested in. Follow the cookie crumbs until you're like, oh, I love this. And you're just salivating so much that you want more of it. That would be
It
my most
brings you
practical.
joy.
It brings you joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, that rush in the body. Yeah. And it's just a muscle. Like I find intuition is a muscle I keep building as I listen to it and I get confirmation afterwards. And so as now we wrapping up this convo, talk about brain worship. We're not down the brain. The brain is beautiful. It's powerful. It's needed. It's a part of us. We're only talking about what the brain has heard: mind, body, spirit, right? The brain knows that, though, is it really embodying that? And we're inviting you into truly embodying mind, body, spirit. And it's the other way around: spirit, body, mind.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It
So until
is.
next time, next Friday, I Get Resource YouTube, live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check us out. And we also invite on guest speakers. If you'd like to be on, shoot us a DM and we'll set something up.
Yeah, and if it doesn't cost you much time or energy, we do appreciate you subscribing to our channel and you will get
Mm.
emails when we're going live to remind you.
Yeah, subscribe us on YouTube at Get Resourced. And appreciate the comments. Chris, Stephanie, Brooke, Tracy, appreciate your support and your energy. Bye for now.